else would like to? Hey, hi, Molly. Great to have you here, Molly. Would you like to go for it?
I just want to really acknowledge the courage of the coach to immediately at the very beginning put on the table like that you seem not to have a positive, you seem to believe that you don't have a positive mindset. I found it like it's such a courageous act for the client. And I'm also just wondering like how much trust and safety actually the client needs to feel to be able to be so courageous. But I guess I don't know until I try.
How many of you shared the same with Molly? Trust me, I also feel oops. I was just thinking, oops. I was like, no, as a coach, I was like crossing my finger. Oh, please, no, please, better work. It was scary for me as a coach to start off in that. No, but what caught me to do that, I really have no idea. I just felt that this is what I think. I mean, okay, let me just be very clear. I was very exhausted, seriously. Okay, my mind is not performing at the optimum today. And I learned that, in such a case like this, when my mind is not strong enough, I have to depend a lot on my past experience that comes as an instinct, intuitions, whatever that is, and just to trust that as much as I can, so that was something intuitive that pops in for me. And since I know that I'm physically tired, I cannot bullet as good as what I can bullet, as per usual. So I decided to flow with more with the intuition and just throw it out there and say, okay, let's just start with that basis, the assumption that you have, and let's just walk through that and see where the conversation might lead us. So since the clients wanted to have more positive mindset, so it has to base on the assumption that I don't have it now, and therefore I need to have it. And so I thought by just unpacking that in a reverse manner, that means sharing me what make that belief to be true. You know what I mean? So, but it kind of like if I put it in a game frame, so like, okay, you want to have a positive mindset. What do you mean by that? I don't think that's going to bring any value in allowing the clients to look on the flip side, right? So that was at least my intuitive guess. And so, being a very witty guy, so kind of like good with double negative. So kind of like it's easier for me to flip that around and say, okay, so let us begin on the opposite side and on the assumption that you don't have it, let's walk through that so that we can see, is there anything that we can challenge or any truth to that belief? Right. So, and that's where it kind of like supported the clients to have an opportunity to kind of on the flip side of it, looking at it to learn something from that assumption that was never been challenged. Okay. So that's how it's the science work with this double negative. Okay. Don't, now my advice is don't try to do that. It's quite a risky move, And it's just fortunate that today it happens to be a good fit for the case. But I won't want to guarantee that it is a good technique that you would employ it. Cool? Is that a good statement? A good way to just frame it. Okay. Hosan, would you like to our faculty members feel free to just jump in to contribute to the collective learning if anytime when you feel that is something that everybody can benefit from that. Hosan, would you like to go next and share with us?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great. First I would like to acknowledge the greatness of a sincere client who's really sincere with, who was really sincere with herself. And I must tell you, whenever I watch a webinar with you guys, I look for two things: the learning and inspiration. So the learning has already been being discussed right now, and I'm still learning until the end of the webinar. But the inspiration I chose for today is the necklace metaphor, because we live in a time where time is really sensitive, and we really want to finish things as fast as possible. We want to climb ladders as fast as possible. And sometimes the way of the necklace, if I may call it, is one of the fastest ways to solve issues that are pending in life.
Yeah.
It also shows like it's bit by bit, one tangling at a time, which also can facilitate the whole thing. If we rush with it, as you said, it's going to be more complicated and you won't be able to solve it maybe forever. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Hosan, for raising that. And what I'm learning from this incident is that as a coach, we can call upon our wisdom. We can call upon wisdom to help us, and or bring that wisdom into a coaching conversation. Am I making sense? Right, rather than like use techniques or write questions, right? Partly because, I mean, in today's case, we came upon a case whereby it says that life is not so easy for most of us as human beings. We do have certain challenges. So it's not a kind of a thing that we try to fix it, or things that we try to work on it. So it brings us closer to, what exactly are we doing as a coach? We are working with a human being who is real, who has feelings, who has pain, who has disappointment, who are just sometimes things just beyond our help, that wow, the necklace is entangled. Who doesn't have that in our own life, right? And so just being able to say that, wow, okay, it's entangled now, and just being with there at the clients at this level, without without the attitude of let me see how I can fix that for my client, but just be able to sit with that and say, whoa, ouch, that's hurt. Okay, so it kind of taught me a lesson that, wisdom does play a part here, to allow, to recognize that at this stage of time, it's okay. It is much more valuable for the conversation to have an open space rather than let's do something about it. Now, if I'm not sure why is it that I'm not following the framework today. It kind of just dawned onto me that not to follow the framework, but to allow more space to talk about it, rather than to say what is the outcome that you want. How are we dealing with the outcome? Are we getting anything from the outcome? So for some coaches, that becomes very challenging. What do you mean by we don't have an outcome? Well, that's where we had to learn from life or tap onto wisdom that there's something in life that kind of like teaches us that there is just something that we doesn't have to resolve, but by just being able to recognize it, acknowledge it, see it, it's a start of a change process. That's the power of awareness, right? Just having that awareness that I'm aware, or I'm clearer with what I'm dealing with itself is a freedom for people. As we can see in today, I'm not sure if the conversation becomes kind of like, okay, let's just see how you can now apply this, do this, change this. I'm not sure whether is that really dignifying for our clients who come, who take so much to be able to come to this point to just say, I'm okay, right? So I think that's where I felt that it might be more valuable to allow the client to have the space to acknowledge herself, and just to recognize that, oh, wow, yeah, yeah, okay, and just sit with that. After all, a coaching conversation has a series of conversation that you can continue to follow up with, right? So we can have a next conversation, where we talk about, okay, now with this clarity in mind, I'm just curious about, what are some positive change that you can start to think about. And we can have that in the next conversation. Are you with me? Okay, so thank you. Now we're going to go to Azadeh later, but I certainly want Janet to go first. Then her hands are sorry. Janet, would you like to go next to share with
Yes,
us?
yes, I would. Having just finished the 37 markers today, I'm really enjoying seeing how Ben cheats. Oh, shall we say breaks the rules but gets away with it. And I love that. I love the trust and safety that was built up by the way you honored the client. You know, you have a friendship with her and you've had some great conversations with her.
Yes.
And I thought that had I not known that, had you not said at the beginning that you were very, very tired, I would have been more surprised when you said, is that making sense? Because I'm sitting there listening. She's talking about wanting to improve her mindset, but the data that she's giving has got nothing to do with mindset. So I'm thinking, how is a coach going to actually get her to realize that actually there is an incongruence here? There's a cognitive dissonance here. And so you managed to do that without having a subtext, which is, oh my goodness, this is not making sense. You just gently asked that, just said, is this making sense? So that was great. She got to the bottom of that. And I loved the way that you made her work really hard at the end, where you said, I feel like we've been around the world and kind of around the world and back again. Can you tell me now where we are in relation to what's bothering you? And I thought, well, that's brilliant coaching, because it's really making the client do the work. So I like it.
I'm not sure it's brilliant, but just me being tired today.
Well, it's brilliant coaching for a person who's tired. How about that?
So, okay, one lesson we learned: when you're tired, you don't do a lot of bulleting, and you just, oh, okay, what is it that you're saying? No. But we does see some dance in between here, as in, we can have invited clients to sum it up. We can invite the client to restate, reframe, redefine something that doesn't seem to make sense. But at least though I'm tired, I'm still listening. Okay, kind of like, it's like, oh, okay. Certainly, I do agree with Janet that the first part of the conversation was something that intuitively or cognitively that I felt that doesn't make sense. Right? But I just don't have any higher capacity to see how else I can like put it back. So I just do the most easiest way. I said, okay, you are saying this and that. Is that making sense? So that is the least amount of energy, taken out from me, so that's how compassion. Good. Anyway, thanks, Janet. Okay, Azadeh, I see that your hands is raised. Do you like to go on? Then after that, I can invite Francis to chip in.
Yeah, I have one thing referring to what you were mentioning earlier on, but I just wanted to say that in music, we sometimes say that when you're very tired, and let's say like with learning the piano and you have to learn everything step by step, there's a lot of rules in what you have to do. They say that when you're tired is when you sometimes play the best, because that's when you let go of all of the things and you just let that come out of you. So I just wanted to say, so sometimes that's where another side of the flow can just come out on its own. So, and then what I actually wanted to refer to was I'm really appreciating what you mentioned around catering to the client's needs in this session. And I just wanted to stress that, yes, we are working with a process and the process has its cycle.
Yes.
But what we also want to consider is that change and the cycle of change also has a cycle.
Yes.
And we as human beings are in different levels of the cycle. And just because we as coaches have in the back of our mind a particular process that we want to follow through, the question is it really honoring the client for me to push through to make sure that I am following the process? Or am I able to really listen in as to what is the need of my client at this phase of change that she is in today? So let's say that the phase of change is very much around awareness and understanding. Is it fitting to push through an action?
Yes.
Or am I actually going to confuse and not allow for that awareness and understanding to really integrate and simmer? Like in Iranian food, we put everything in and it has to cook for like a whole night. And then the next day it's amazing. So that's what I just wanted to say. I'm actually appreciating that we're seeing the human as a whole. We're seeing the whole cycle of change as an entirety of cycle, and we're catering to that need as well, and not just what is required from us.
Thank you. Is that wonderful to know that? Okay, so that is a place for classroom learning where we train ourselves to get it right, to get the understanding right, to get the skill set right. There's also a place outside the training where we use the understanding that we learn and improvise, customize. And I think that's where this platform becomes invaluable. And partly because most of our clients doesn't seems to be like the kind of clients we are coaching during our classroom learning. Okay, they are all your friends, you're practicing, right? And they are very merciful. Say like, okay, we are in training, and so I'm going to okay, this is a topic that I wanted to talk about, right? But then, I mean, the reality is that when we step into the ocean, start to swim in the ocean, that's where you will say, "Wow, oh, never see that coming." Okay, so at least in this platform, we are able to help you to enjoy the underwater world with a safe protection. At least the one get bitten is me. Okay, but you get to see, oh yeah, that's how the sharks eat the fish. Okay. Let's see how this coach is going to untangle this issue here. Let's see. This is tough one. Let me see how the coach is going to break through that. Right, I mean, you get to laugh over it when you see someone else is dealing with the shark, what I mean? But then you get to learn from it. Okay, this is how best I can navigate, how best I can just move around this delicate issue. Yeah, still honoring the thing that we learn in the class, but just take it to the next level. Yeah. Thank you. Francis, would you like to go next and share with us?
Sure. Well, first of all, I really do appreciate Coach and Client for another mind expanding learning experience and readily applicable to living as a practitioner. And I was just reflecting, I had a conversation yesterday with a client, and I was saying, oh, I know this is my process, but I'm sensing the client needs something else. And so, to Janet's point, we see Ben, he's cheating, but then I said, this is the gift of mastery of the process and understanding what the process is to bring to the client in any given moment. Yeah. And once getting a handle on that really makes a huge difference in your capacity to flex and to recombine the science to get to a certain point. And I thought also what really caught my attention, and I saw that Ben, went into this, this belief, this inquiry about the belief, and he said he was tired, but I also said, wow, if I were so capable to be tired and be able to use what I know about the process, willing to experiment. There was a willingness to experiment. You might have been tired, Ben, but I was just kind of thinking, that doesn't supersede the fact that there is something there in the mastery of the process that gives you the courage, the willingness to experiment. And it was about evoking awareness, which is what the client needed. You brought a whole different perspective very quickly to the table.
Thank you. I'm delivering a workshop today to a group of executive leaders and trying to break through their mind of thinking, and it really took me 8 hours and I was absolutely exhausted. Spending 8 hours with them and traveling back and sitting here, you know what I mean? And so my encouragement to all of you is, yeah, as what Francis has mentioned, there is a place for us to learn. And the learning is to build that strong mastery, which we can call upon. And why is that important? Is because we don't want to leave to chance, for things to just happen. If it happened, it happened, right? We want to be able to make sure that we honor the job that we are doing, recognizing how vulnerable our clients is, if they're willing to open up. And the transformation is real. Touching the client's heart in a very tangible way in a short moment in time is also real, right? And that so my encouragement to all of you is, yes, don't give up. Okay, be a lifelong learner. If your job is to bring goodness to humanity, that is so much that we can learn. And I can only say that I'm committed to make every week live coaching session at least something that is different, fresh, and alive, with no kind of like entertainment, and trying to make it like, what I mean? But it is rich. I mean, what I believe is that the skill set grow together with you, right? As you learn a little bit more, it evolve, your understand deepens, right? And I hope that I will be able, not I hope, I want to be able to continue this as long as, yes. Okay, and I promise that I'll be learning and growing and reflecting and drawing out insights, from life, and incorporate that into a coaching approach so that as a collective, we all benefit from it. Cool? Okay, great. Now, we have Sophie here with us. Let's invite Sophie to, offer us a few insights. And then thereafter, we're going to open up for a more technical discussion to deepen your understanding around, certain things that happens in the conversation. How do we go about making sense of it? Now, Sophie, would you like to give us some insight before we turn that into a Q&A?
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you very much for giving this space to all the students, past, present, and and ongoing, to learn. And I would like to say that I'm very privileged students that I joined CMA from 2015. Can you imagine? Up to today, I'm still a student of CMA. And I'm very happy to see Ezra there. I tell you, Ezra there is so wonderful. Now, what I'm going to say is I'm going to combine what touches my heart tonight as I observe this coaching demo, which is really powerful. The first thing I observe is Ben, being the coach, is willing to be vulnerable. At the very onset, he said that, I had a very exhausting day and I feel tired. And in that short sentence, in owning that experience of tiredness, he actually showed us that CMA really embraces the emotional intelligence in the practice of coaching. That I'm experiencing this, I acknowledge it, and I'm going to show self-compassion for myself, and I'm going to tap into the collective energy here. And that's what I'm very proud of, that CMA always has this. The second part that I'm very, I feel that very privileged to learn is actually from Ezra there. She said something that is, I tell you, $1 million sentence. In order to let it come, you have to first let it go. I'm tired. I know I feel exhausted. I may not do as well, but I'm going to let it go and relax and just be present, and it will come, and trusting your inner wisdom for that to happen. I think that is something that it is not spelled out in the 8 core competencies, but it actually show it flesh out in the coaching mindset. and the presence. And I really want to acknowledge that. And thank you very much, Ben and Azadeh, for this wisdom.
Thank you, Anya. Anya, Anya, happy that you are here today. You know, this is something that we caught, not taught, right? We all know the power of presence and the importance of presence, but some of these lessons just have to be caught in order for that to become more real to all of us. So hope you and hope these sessions benefited you and enlightened you. So now we're going to turn that into more of a technical. Oh, we have Louise raising her hand. Just honor her first, and then after that we turn that into a Q&A. Is that okay? So you can kind of like then direct your attention to any part of the conversation that you would like to have more insight on the thinking process, in hope that you may gain some understanding. Louis, would you like to go first? We'd like to pass the time to you first.
First of all, thank you, right, for this learning opportunity. And I was impressed by something that Azadeh said too, something else. Today's Azadeh is very sage, very out of wisdom. Yeah, because she said that we are all on a different path of growth in our life. And we have to acknowledge the client's point in their path. This is not so easy sometimes, I think. So to know how much we can stretch them.
Yes.
Yeah, and something, and it depends, right, very much on our experience too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Louis, for bringing that wisdom, and it's a very human job, right? Yes, we train ourselves with the knowledge of the right thing to do, but to be able to do the right thing in the right manner also requires us to accumulate such life experience. So, and that's why I found that this life coaching session not only benefit all our community, it also benefit me as I become my own case study of trying to figure out what exactly do I know. It's kind of like, oh, okay, I know some stuff that I think, okay, now I'm able to say it in a very concrete manner. It just make me feel that actually I know something. Okay, I just don't know how much I know, but I also learned something, as a coach, as I, talk about how the process works. Okay, so it's a collective learning. Great. So are we ready to turn that into Q&A? Good. Great. So let's open it up to see, is there any aspect of the conversation that kind of caught your attention and you would like to have a little bit more understanding around what's actually the thinking process behind? Anyone would like to, anyone had any curiosity around any part of the conversation that we can talk about? Oh, okay. This doesn't seem, it seems like caught you guys on surprise. Okay, we didn't think about that. Anything? So let's give a few moments. If not, we can see, maybe we can. Oh, that's good. Are we all fully done with today's conversation? We have Karen. So what does wisdom teach us? Be a little bit more patient. Something will just show up. Karen, go for it. Share
I
with
was
us.
hovering, yeah. I noticed two things, the very early kind of challenge in the conversation and around the sense, and I think you talked about that. But another question stood out to me where the coach talked about what you were prepared to do if you have the understanding. And the word do stood out to me at that point as to why that's sometimes a word we're quite careful about using, or when to use the word to do. And then it was only shortly after that there was quite a shift around this understanding. And I wondered what was happening there.
Great. Maybe I'll just get a couple. Is there faculty members who like to respond first? Or you guys are just waiting for me to respond? Well, okay, again, that's where I have to tune into my intuition to see what's honestly speaking, at that point of time, my logical mind is thinking another direction. And And somehow I ignore that, partly because I don't think I have enough capacity to follow the chain of thought if I go on in that direction. And so that was that intuition to say, hey, check in with the client in regards to the readiness to deal with whatever truth that might be presented. Not that the client is not ready, but readiness in terms of to see whether, to test the ground, to see, yeah. So that's where that question was being posted here is, what is it that you're prepared for? If you do have to understand, that's a very powerful question, partly because, people want to seek understanding or seek certain clarity. And there are times where people seek understanding for the sake of understanding. Are you with me with that? Right? People are seeking for understanding because I just want to understand for the sake of understanding it, which is good because maybe sometimes we don't have the understanding and we might want to just take some time to talk about what we need to be clear. But in today's case, it doesn't feel to me that the understanding is not clear for the client. There are some glimpses of insight, but it's more of what are you prepared to deal with it if you do know you do have the truth. So that's where the chain of thought is. And that came as a surprise for me too, but because it certainly has a magical impact on the client as the client is then in that very moment being challenged to confront, this truth. What am I prepared to do if I do see something, right? So that surprises me, but it does opens up so again, I like to just put a condition that is not a kind of a default question that we can use, okay? But you might also want to consider to use this question as in, so what will you do with that understanding, as a substitute for what positive difference will this bring to you? Does that make sense? So it's the same direction, but it's a little bit more challenging in today's context. What are you prepared to change if you have that understanding? Is that helping you, Karen, with this? If I kind of explain it in this way.
Yes, I'm reminded of a previous demo you did recently, and you talked about the clients sort of facing the change during the conversation and pushing a little bit towards that.
Yes, yeah. It's not pushing them to what do you want to change. It's challenge them personally. What are you prepared if you do have this capacity? So it's a very personal challenge to the clients, not so much of challenging the clients to change. It's challenging the client herself. You know what I mean? So that is where that question, I recall in that moment, I was very tactful and careful, to land that question so that it sounds and feel respectful. Not that I'm challenging the clients, but I'm inviting the client to consider something. Yeah, so that's my best version. Good. Now, Louis, can you go ahead and maybe our faculty members can contribute?
I was just thinking, adding to what you're saying, if I may, because I'm trying it out. It could be also that it changed from mindset to behavior.
Yeah.
And the coachee had the feeling that she could handle the behavior. And she couldn't handle a mindset, right? The change of a behavior. I just had this feeling that kind of turned it into a behavior. Things have, and maybe that is the reason. I don't know.
I'm not sure whether am I thinking in that line. So what I can recall now is more of, an invitation for the clients to see how much she's ready to change something if she do have a certain understanding. So it has nothing to do with understanding at all. It's how much you are prepared to deal with it. So that's where I think that's what I'm thinking about at that point of time. Because I think there's this gut feeling inside me to say that even though the client says that she wants to understand why and how and blah, 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 I'm able to kind of intuitively sense it that 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 is not exactly what that is. That is something more valuable behind that, you see. Yeah, I mean, so and that's where I kind of like get that. So that's how it flipped over to the other side as a, so what are you prepared to change if you do have that understanding? Right, because that happens after we shifted from a mindset to an attitude, and then the client was kind of like, okay, now I know that there's a shift, so maybe I want to understand a little bit more. So that was where I felt that might not be most valuable, even though the client did say that I want to understand. So
the layer was still not at the right level.
I don't know. Okay, I just don't feel personally. I don't feel that that is valuable. I'm not sure. I mean that is how that question was posted. But you can, for CMA graduates, this is like the positive difference, right? What positive difference will that bring if you're able to have that understanding? So instead of positive difference, it's shifted into what is it that you are prepared to change? Okay, if you have that understanding. Same, but not the same lah, huh? Okay. Hi, is that Serena?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Nice to
Hi.
meet you. I'm a guest. I'm calling from Milano, Italy, and I have been invited by the kind Luisa. So thank you
Wow.
also for letting me be here. Well, first of all, thank you very much for sharing this beautiful moment. And I have a question, as I am a coaching student and I'm a beginner, so I do not have much experience. And what I have been mostly touched by is exactly following the intuition, which sometimes can be hard, probably especially at the beginning, because we are taught exactly to follow bullets or, path. But we're also taught or, said to listen, which is actually the most important thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you have intuitions, you are listening. And so, but sometimes it's risky, you say, okay, maybe I'm not as strong as, in this moment. So when is the right time to follow intuitions and when maybe it's not? I'm talking as a beginner, of course. Maybe later, it's always good to follow intuitions, but now, when is it a good moment?
Well, at least I will say that when I'm tired, I tend to listen more.
Okay, that's a good point.
Okay, so I guess the intuition has to be trained, because not all intuitions are pure intuitions. It could be muddled up with some judgments and some conclusions or interpretations, or it's just your mind's, making up that, oh, this is what it is, right? So to be able to discern the inner tucking of a voice or a wisdom, it's quite a sophisticated process to explain that in a short breath like that, right? But I think what I can say is, at least you can hear something. Okay, that is a good news. Okay, then now that you're able to hear it, then I will invite you to consider how can you distill it, purify it, tap into it, so that you can more discerning between this is a wisdom that is stirring within you versus that this is just another interpretation that comes from your mind, right? So that might be the second phase of your training and development as a person, as a person, not so much as a coach, because we don't need to be a coach in order to listen to intuition. Right, it's a daily thing that we should be able to do as a human being, to be able to tune into our inner wisdom and tap upon that, right? So the question of when do I listen and when do I not listen, I think it would be better frame it as, how can I discern it? And then now that if I can discern it, what is it that is telling me? And then how am I able to recognize that voice as a wisdom and not another voice that is speaking. So that might be more useful. Then later on, if you're able to do that, then you can incorporate that as another modality of your listening skills. And then you can use some of the core competency at the advanced level, like for example, can I make an offering? Can I offer you something as a thought that comes to me? And then turn that into more of a non-attachment as, okay, I just want to find out from you, how would that land for you? Or is that perspective useful? And then just be open that maybe it's not useful, and then you let it go. But maybe it's useful, then we should be able to turn it into an invitation. Hey, if that is useful, then you use a higher skill set to say, how is that useful for you? What is speaking to you about that? So that is where you are able to still use the competency to leverage on another modality of kind of like listening. Cool. Oh, that is an encouragement. So my invitation to you is not to kind of like put it as, should I listen or should I not listen, but learn to distill it, and the only way to test it is use it as often as you can and realize when it's not, sometimes by just knowing that this is not an intuition is as good as you recognizing next time when an intuition arises, I'm able to say, this is my intuition. Can just play with it. And the safer way to play with it is, I have an intuition. Oh, just accept it as it is an intuition. Then learn to kind of like offer it. Can I share that with you? This is what I'm thinking. Is that making sense? That if your client said no, then rejoice and say, oh, okay, I'm glad to hear that. Then at the back of your mind, quickly put a bookmark. Okay, this is not what it is. Recognize the pattern. This is basically how security officers are being trained in random to pick up anyone, that in the event, if they are able to pick on a suspect and it confirmed true, they are taught to recognize what is it about that moment that signal to them to identify this suspect. So it's about doing many times of mistake so that you hit one correct one and lock onto that moment to allow you to distill intuition. Okay, so if you can follow the same drills, I think you're on a good path.
Thank you so much.
The good news is you have intuition. Some people doesn't even know that is an intuition. Thank you. Now we have Yan, and then after that, Irene. Yan, would you like to go for it?
Yeah, I just want to share that it's a good thing that you're tired today. I came into the demo, I was hoping, not hoping, I was expecting like, the questions, inquiries, and I was like, preparing for that. But it just went in a different direction. And I just want to acknowledge that. So what I enjoyed all the sharing earlier about learning at a heart level. I felt connected at a heart level. Like a very core, one of the very initial concept that we've learned before is I see you.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the thing, and that helps me to understand that we don't, like what Azada has mentioned earlier, it's still a process of change, even though it's not following strictly on the framework.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but although I'm curious, what was the other logical thinking that you wanted to go, but you didn't go? I'm just curious to find out if we have time.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We can replay that again tomorrow, and then I will see how that will show up differently. I was giving a phone call to Yan. It was about 7:30 before it. I was like, oh, okay. And I was so happy that she said that she had to attend to some other things. Like, okay, good. I don't need to have that conversation. And I took a quick 15 minutes power nap. Good. Well, thanks. Irene, I see that your hand has raised. Would you like to, go for it?
Yes. Can you see this? So I want to thank both Yan and Ben for the opportunity of elevating my learning and deepening my understanding that created the awareness to help me to unravel this. What I learned from this is to look for the opportunities.
Yeah, that's true.
Where does the opportunity exist to elevate learning and to deepen understanding? And I just left it in front of me, and I was looking and shifting every loop that I found. And this is something that I've struggled with this for weeks. And in the course of this section, I have it unraveled. And this session is going to be a memorable one for me because I have something, a metaphor for my learning from this session.
Great. Thank you, Irene, for sharing. I love the way Irene says, look for the opportunity in the conversation that requires a very tactful hand, that I'm not forcing something. I'm not in control of things, even though I'm the expert in the process. So I guess this is a kind of attitude that eventually we need to acquire as a coach, to turn it into a little bit more personal conversation. Yeah. Great. Well, maybe just one more dialogues. I'll go ahead. Ciao.
Thank you for calling my name right. Well, I just want to share something because from the level 3 learning, we learn about inviting the client for exploring and also not trying to resolve anything. And I see that very clearly in today's conversation that and I have a curious question about whether should a coach have two minds in the head, one exalted one to follow through the nothing to be solved, and just inviting the client to explore. And then the other one maybe working something in behind to processing.
I'm glad you raised that question up. I think I really regretted using the statement, nothing to resolve. I think I like to lean towards that the coach is able to acquire the competency to invite the client to learn something from it. Versus acquiring the competency to explore in order to learn something about it. Right? So I think the mindset of nothing to resolve is about the ability to learn something from something that needs to be resolved. Because from the client story, it felt that there are some entanglement, things that is not easy for the client. So indeed, from the client's point of view, there are things that needs attention, that needs to be looked upon and examined further, right? And what the coach has acquired the capacity is to turn that around, to invite the client to learn from it using a third loop processing. This is what it is. Now, as you're standing here, what is that informing you about something that you are referring to? So this is the kind of what happens in today's conversation, right? So it's learning something from it. So the way the question, the way the response was created follows this pattern versus what I can learn about this, which is a second loop and a first loop eventually. Like if this is what you learn, what do you want to do about it? But the invitation is, this is what you have learned. How is that informing you something? Like there was this moment where the question was faced in a very weird manner. If this is what life has taught you, what do you think life is teaching you? So this is to learn something from it by changing the sequence of the question, not something like, if this is what life is teaching you, what can you learn about it? Or what is it that you can learn from it? Or what is your learning? So if it was framed in this way, then it falls short of a double loop. Okay, some of you are processing it. The conventional question is, what do you learn from it? what is emerging, what is making sense. All right. So that is mostly a second loop processing, and it can potentially create a first loop answer, like this is what I learned. Because you're asking what are you learning from it? So the possibility of saying that this is what I learned is high in this pattern. I'm not saying that it always has to be the case, but the probability of a first loop response is relatively high. So far, so good. Oof. I'm tired. I still have enough capacity to process it. Okay. So when the question is changed, no, the response is now changed to, if this is what life is talking to you, what do you think life is teaching you? So now the client is now like standing out, looking at two entities. One is life in general. And then on the other hand, the client has the issue, the whatever that is uncovered from the conversation. So now the client is looking at, this is my issue that I gained. And now I'm looking at life that is talking to me. So in this way, the client is put in a third loop processing now. Third loop, so far so good. Then later part, the question is then, what is this informing you? Which turn that into a second loop answer versus this is what I learned. So with this rich layers of processing at a higher loop based on the way the coach frame the response and invite the learning, it creates a much more richer experience for the client. Does that make sense? Wow, great. Okay.
Thank you so much. I don't mean to make you feel exhausted more.
But it comes easier for me because this is something that I can do it naturally. You know what I mean? So that's how the mind can process it, quite easy at the point in time for me to turn it into, okay, what is life teaching you here? How is that informing you here? And then do a checkout. Okay, so where are you right now in regard to this understanding? And what can you draw from this learning? So there's a lot of loops of different learning. The way the coach check-in has that multiple dimension of learning, it's not very, so that's why it can keep the conversation alive. Cool. Ooh, are we happy with the learning today? It's kind of like everybody's lost right now. Oh, what is that? What did he drink just now? He's awake now. Yeah. Okay, now I'm starting to wake up. Okay, so let's end off the session with everyone making an offering as the what are you taking away? Is that a good way to close? Let's start with Alice. Alice was like, Alice, you start first. What are you walking away?
I still very much okay. Over again.
In the retreat, we say that the good things in life is that we got rewind button.
Yes.
So,
delete. Sorry. And then, this discussion involves a lot of reflection.
Yeah, that's true.
While I fully respect the framework, the science, I guess all of us is pouring our heart into it.
Yes.
And trying to offer, involve, engage all this is the most beautiful thing. And so I will also sometimes cheat. So and we are all human.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. And really it's a very beautiful discussion. We all are in the change every day.
Yes.
We all with you, Yan, the client, we all are together. And this is very beautiful.
Yeah. And together, we as coaches, we are also learning, don't forget, right? We give ourselves permission to grow, that we are not contented with just what we learn in the classroom. And we want to cheat, that is obvious. And that is good. But then we want to cheat in a way that nobody can know that we're cheating. Right? So that's why we always, in our Coach Masters Academy, we say, you want to break the rules? Fine. But earn the right to break the rules. Okay. Right. So that is a price that we need to pay first, not just the cost fees. Okay, but pay the price to be scolded. Wrong. Not good enough. You're not following the framework. Too lazy. You scold the students like this. Out of love. Okay, not enough hard work. Okay, because mastery requires rigorous discipline, right? An attitude of a student or honoring the craft. We don't just take it just because I'm experienced. Yes, experience is good, but regulated practice with evaluation, with feedback, with insight, this is a craftsmanship, right? So there is a place for that. And just that we're not giving it enough emphasis, right? Most of the coaches I met, like, stop learning to some point after they finish the second level. To have the attitude like Sophie, who is mature, practitioners with many years of experience, coming back to the class and interact at this level, is a humble attitude of honoring the craft, that there is a space. Like our Suing, she's experienced individual with a PhD at the back of her, behind her, and rich interaction at adult learning, capacity, and she know a lot, but she still make effort, to show up because of an attitude that, wow, the craft that we are learning has no end towards that, right? So we as coaches also need to give ourselves permission to develop and learn and grow. Could do. And I hope this kind of collective space will inspire you to, yes, start afresh. Because we say in life there is play button. We can play anytime we want. Not only rewind button, but play button. Good. Great. How about Margarita? Would you like to go next? We'd love to hear your voice.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for this beautiful, beautiful conversation and very full of learnings for me. I missed CMA for a while, and I'm so happy to be back and be so enthusiastic about the way how the conversation is being held and the follow-up discussion, which is such a great learning experience. One of the learnings from today's experience is having the courage to approach every session depending on the needs, on the current needs of the client, and where, as it has been beautifully mentioned often by Azadeth and other participants, feel that cycle, the place in the cycle of change where the client is, and accommodate the conversation to that, and take in consideration that hopefully that would not be the only conversation with the client, as you mentioned, Ben, but continue that further and continue being in there for the client, depending on the specific place where the person is, and growing further, helping to grow further.
Wow. Well done. Are we all excited tonight? Okay. Feel fat? Oh, yes, I just woke up. Let's continue for another discussion. I'm not going to let you go. Well, there is other live demonstration, a coaching demonstration that is not the same as a live coaching session, where we demonstrate the skill set that is required at the different levels. So that is also a very good learning if you want to sharpen your understanding of a certain skill set that is taught in the classroom. Could do. Good. So with that, are we good to go tonight? Good. So with that, take care and have a wonderful week ahead of you, and continue to inspire positive change. Cool. So thank you, and never alone. Have a great week ahead of you. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you very
everyone.
much. Bye.